What's up guys? On today's video I wanted to share with you my top 5 exercises for glute activation before exercise. Now whether that's before running, some type of jumping, sport or lifting in the gym, any type of lower body stuff, these 5 exercises are going to get your glutes firing to make sure you're doing everything properly. Now as I've discussed in my podcast, the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, and also on my blog at dannykennedyfitness.com, lower back pain is very commonly caused by lazy and underactive glutes and tight hip flexors. So presuming that you've already loosened off your hip flexors and your pelvis is in a good position, these 5 exercises are going to get your glutes firing before we start. So exercise number 1 is going to be a glute hip raise or a hip thrust. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can do reps, you can use a band, and you can also add in a box to make it a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to run you through all 3 variations just very quickly. So the first one, you're just going to be lying on the ground. You want to make sure you flatten out your pelvis before you lift up. So flatten out the pelvis, heels nice and close to the bone. From there you're going to lift your hips straight up. So hips up as high as you can, squeeze your glutes, come back down. Make sure your pelvis is back. So pelvis back, lift up, squeeze your glutes, come back down. Now for the variation with the band, obviously he's going to put the band, feet through the band. And then the band is going to be just above your knees. So just above the kneecaps. You want it nice and tight and not too high up, and also not down around the ankles. Now you're going to do exactly the same thing, but pressing out against resistance of the band. So hips back, rotate your pelvis down so your lower back is flat, so there's no room between your lower back and the ground. And then from there you're lifting up. Knees out, hold for a second, come back down. Make sure you're getting that pelvic tilt before you lift up. Put your pelvis in a neutral position. That way your glutes can fire. Lifting up, and then the last variation I'm going to run through is with the box. So we're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing, except now you're using the box. You're going to rest your shoulders or your upper body on the edge of the box. Again, pelvic tilt back, flatten out the lower back, feet about shoulder width apart, pressing out against the band to create that tension. Hips up, squeeze the glutes, come back down. So that pelvic tilt to make sure it's back is very important, to make sure your pelvis is in a neutral position to allow your glutes to actually fire. Okay, exercise number 2, we're going to take you through a clamshell, so another great exercise to do before you're doing squats, any type of running, jumping or glute exercise. Exercise where you need to use your posterior chain. You're going to lie on the side. I found the most effective way. Lying on the side, have your bottom leg out kind of semi-straight, knee to the side. From here, all you're going to do is lift your hip up or lift your knee up using your glutes. So you don't want to open up your whole hip, because otherwise you're not using your glutes. So knee starts low, lift up through the glutes. You should feel your glute really fire up. If your hip flex is switching on, then you just do this over and over and over again, slowly making sure your glutes firing first. Hold for a second, come back down. Other way. Lower leg nice and straight. Heel close to your bum. Lifting up through the glute. That's exercise number 2. Exercise number 3 is going to be a knee spread with the TheraBand again. So you're going to put the band back up just above your knees. And you want to be standing with your feet about shoulder width apart. Hips slightly back, so you're like in a half squat type position. So side on, just up here, hips back a little bit. And now from here you're going to plant both feet into the ground and press your knees out. So hips back, knees out against the band. So I'm pressing my knees out, but my feet are staying firm against the ground. So if your feet are lifting off the ground like this, then you're not doing it right. So feet against the ground, knees straight out. So you're going to do 10 reps, pressing out against the band, hold for a second, and then come back in. So 10 reps with both legs. Once you've done that, have a little bit of a rest. Then you're going to do single leg. So feet shoulder width apart, pressing one knee at a time, hold for a second, come back in. 10 on one side, 10 on the other, and that's number 3. Exercise number 4, you're going to use the band again. Except now we're going to bring it down around the ankles. Again, hips back, nice and wide stance, so there's constant tension against the band. You're going to take big steps, not bringing your feet inside shoulder width. You're going to go for anywhere from 5 to 10 steps forward. Have a rest, let your glutes relax a second, and then we're going to go back. So again, big steps, shoulder width apart, tension against the band, getting the glutes firing up so your hips are back. So if you're leaning forward and your weight's going forward, your knees are passing your toes, then you're going to feel this in your quads and not so much your glutes. So let your hips sit back, weight through your glutes, big steps. So shoulder width apart, big step, nice slow and controlled movements, make sure your glutes are firing. Alright, last exercise, we're actually going to leave the band on. One more exercise with the band. So as you can see, having a band like this is very handy, they're really cheap, and for glute activation, they're one of the best things you can have. So this last one, again, feet shoulder width apart, hips back, and we're just going to do squares. So similar to what we've just done. You can take one step forward, feet are still shoulder width apart, knees are pressing out, another step forward. Now you're going to press step aside, and side again, never coming inside shoulder width so my glutes are constantly working. Step back, back, across, across, that's one. Have a bit of a rest, then you're going to come back the other way. Across, across, forward, forward, across, across. So there you have, there's 5 exercises you can do for glute activation before exercise. Now before this, I would recommend doing some foam rolling, some type of myofascial release. Once you've done your foam rolling, do a bit of mobility, so mobility through the hips, stretching through the hip flexors if you need to. Again, healthy lengthened hip flexors is really going to allow your glutes to fire because your pelvis will be in a neutral position. If they're tight through here, you get that anterior pelvic tilt, which then puts your hamstrings on stretch, really tight through here, and it makes it really hard for your glutes to fire up. So myofascial release, mobility and release work through the hips, and then move on to your activation. Glute activation, do a few hamstring exercises, and you should be good to go. So give these 5 glute activation exercises a go. Leave a comment below if you've got any questions or if any feedback on these exercises if you feel like they help you, and make sure you subscribe to the channel.